Hello everybody, this is an overview of Module 5, Race, Ethnicity, and Gender. These are systems of stratification that we need to talk about, and we need to identify some particular definitions of the term. So you're going to describe the difference between individual and institutional discrimination. This is important, and a lot of times people think they know what discrimination means. Maybe they've even experienced it. But in the case of when we're looking at social structure, we have to be careful here. Discrimination, in this case, has two elements. Individual discrimination is when a person is discriminated against by another individual. Institutional discrimination, on the other hand, embodies the policies and procedures which disadvantage one group in relation to another. We're talking about, in the case of race, structural racism, it's called, or structural discrimination. For example, when we look at police policy or home mortgage discrimination policies that targeted people of color, or recent medical policies and procedures that have advantaged one group and disadvantaged another group, in all kinds, across all kinds of different social institutional arrangements. The way, for example, people of color are, their representations are distorted in the mass media, for example, would be another example. So this is something you need to keep into consideration as you're working through this. Just don't write, that discrimination is bad. Think about the fact that institutional discrimination affects more people and is actually more problematic. Okay. So you're gonna be also working on what's called a concept map. Okay, and that is for your final project. Let's take a look here. Okay, so race is a socially constructed concept. There are biological markers, but there is no the idea of race as a biological concept is largely discredited. Okay, but race is very real in its social construction and the way in which it has been defined by groups in power. Ethnicity, talks about cultural differences. Okay, gender is a socially constructed term that's built on top of biological sex. Okay, in other words, there are two modal biological sexes, although we now know that there's a continuum. And one, it has a kind of social construction built onto it. For example, we think that men are strong and women are more expressive. That's all a social construction built on top of biological sex, right? I have personally done research on what's called the motherhood penalty. If you want to look at differences in wage gaps between men and women, a lot of it is explained from a scientific standpoint by the fact that child care in the United States is considered a commodity rather than a civil right. And because of that, people have to pay for it. And women, of course, bear an outsized responsibility for taking care of children. We know this both within couples during the pandemic and from single motherhood, right? It's not that they just, I don't know, I grapple with this language. It's not a question by law. It's not that their salary is less important than men's. It's that women are forced to take time off, which negatively impacts their careers, whereas men are not. Okay. That is those are sort of the elements of the topic. Okay. And again, you know, we cover a lot of topics. Coronavirus indeed did widen the gender wage gap, because when children had to stay at home from school, women took care overwhelmingly. I would seriously recommend, if you want to get an example of institutional racism, that you read this article on redlining. Okay. You know, and so you know, we have a number of topics you can cover and a number of resources that you need to do in addition to reading. Please read all of these resources. Here are some, and again, here's a video or a website which tells you, you know, a lot about this issue. Okay. So for your discussion, you're going to discuss individual and institutional discrimination. Please review the material and know the difference. Okay. And then you're going to be doing your milestone 3. A lot of people grapple with, you know, what are we talking about when we're talking about a concept map? Basically, it's a PowerPoint presentation, and they give you a framework to create a PowerPoint presentation. What you will need to do as you create this is keep this in mind. Imagine that you are giving an oral presentation of what will be your final project. People do this at academic conferences. They do it in work-related you know, presentations as well. So that's the kind of underpinning for Milestone 3. Think about this as if you're going to, and you will in the future, make some sort of a presentation based on the work that you've done. Okay? So that's Milestone, that's Milestone 3, and this is Module 5.